Sometimes change doesn't come from learning something new. It comes from finally noticing what's been there all along. There's a quiet psychological shift that, once seen, rearranges everything you thought you knew about control, effort, and growth. It's not a trick or a mantra. It's a way of seeing yourself differently. If this feels familiar, stay with me. Most people live as if life happens outside them, as if circumstances must change for peace to arrive. But the truth is more unsettling. Your life always bends to the shape of your inner attention. You experience the world not as it is, but as you expect it to be. The simple strategy that changes everything is learning to watch, not react. To observe without immediately turning what you see into a story about you. Every emotion, every thought, every reaction is a messenger. But we were taught to silence them, to fix or replace them before they could finish their sentence. The mind tries to protect you by naming, labeling, rushing. Yet transformation begins the moment you notice. You don't have to answer every thought that knocks. You can let it speak and still stay still. This is what psychologists sometimes call meta-awareness. But in the emotional language of everyday life, it simply means waking up inside the moment before you react. It's realizing that the story running in your head isn't reality. It's your nervous system translating what feels unsafe into what seems true. When someone ignores your message, your body might whisper, "You're not important." When someone leaves, it says, "You're easy to forget." But if you pause, even for 2 seconds, and notice that voice as a voice, not as truth, everything softens. Because what you're practicing in that moment isn't control. It's choice. The space between stimulus and response is the birthplace of all freedom. Every time you stay there, just watching, you rewrite your conditioning. People often believe healing means feeling better. But healing actually begins when you allow yourself to feel at all, without turning that feeling into a verdict. The anxiety, the guilt, the anger, they're not enemies. They're old signals trapped in motion. When you notice them instead of fighting them, you teach your body that safety doesn't depend on avoiding pain. Safety grows from presence. Think of how much energy you spend trying to manage impressions, how you edit what you say, how you brace for rejection, how you rehearse small moments to avoid discomfort. All of that effort is built on one hidden assumption, that how others see you is more real than how you experience yourself. That belief is the root of almost every form of suffering. But when you start watching your reactions instead of obeying them, you notice how automatic that performance has become. You realize your personality is partly a collection of defenses, ways you learned to keep belonging while staying invisible. Every time you notice yourself shrinking or performing, you are standing at the border of your old life and your real one. That's the exact moment where freedom can begin. Not when you change your habits, not when you finally love yourself, but when you simply see what you're doing without shame. Because awareness alone is transformation in its earliest form. It dissolves what it looks at, not by force, but by understanding. When you truly see the pattern, you no longer need to fight it. It starts losing its grip. Most people spend years trying to become better. But the strategy that changes your life forever is simpler. Become more conscious of what's already happening inside you. Watch the thoughts that pull you, the emotions that color your day, the stories that justify your pain. In that awareness, you'll find the quiet realization that you've never been broken, only hypnotized by old meanings. It's strange how this one skill, awareness, makes everything else possible. Relationships become clearer, not because others change, but because you stop confusing your projections for truth. Work becomes lighter, not because it's easier, but because your self-worth is no longer tangled in outcome. Even loneliness shifts. You begin to feel the company of your own attention. And perhaps that's what all inner growth is, learning to be a kinder witness. When you start to see yourself this way, you notice something profound. Most pain isn't from the feeling itself, but from resisting it. You suffer more from your attempt to not be anxious than from anxiety itself. You fear fear. You avoid sadness by shutting down joy too. Watching dissolves that loop. You learn that emotions pass when they're allowed to. You remember that you can survive what you feel. So the next time you feel yourself tightening, defending, explaining, blaming, pause. Notice what that moment is protecting. Beneath every reaction is a tender truth. You once had to react to survive. You built reflexes from fear, not flaw. And now, watching them with compassion is how you teach yourself safety again. It's in these small pauses that life rearranges itself. Because the more you observe, the less you're ruled by the unconscious. You begin to see that every pattern, every argument, craving, avoidance, is your nervous system trying to return home. Watching brings it there faster than fixing ever could. And the first time you feel the distance between what happens and how you respond, the first time you stay present while your old reflex trembles, that's the quiet miracle. That's the shift that changes everything. You start to realize that awareness isn't passive. It's the most active force there is. It reclaims energy from illusion and returns it to choice. Something in you has always known this. That still space inside you, the one that never disappears no matter how chaotic things get, that's been awareness all along. You've just been living slightly ahead of it, lost in reaction. But now, as you begin to notice it, the question arises, what happens when you no longer rush to escape yourself? What opens when you stay present long enough for the truth beneath the reaction to finally speak? It's there, in that pause, that the second half of your life begins. When you start listening to yourself this way, you begin to uncover the architecture of every reaction, the emotional blueprint that built who you became. Every judgment you hold, every opinion that feels like certainty, often hides an old vow. I'll never feel that again. The mind doesn't create beliefs out of logic. It builds them out of protection. So if you trace any strong reaction far enough back, you'll find a moment of helplessness that never learned how to end. Watching your thoughts isn't enough. You must begin to feel the body's memory inside them. When you're triggered, it's rarely about what's happening. It's about the echo of something that once did. Someone raises their voice, and your chest tightens. Not because they're dangerous, but because, long ago, loud meant unsafe. Someone goes quiet, and your stomach drops, not because they reject you, but because silence once meant abandonment. To witness this with tenderness, instead of analysis, is to begin reparenting your nervous system. You show it what safety feels like by staying through what you once escaped. That's the secret edge of awareness. It heals not by understanding alone, but by presence. The body trusts consistency more than insight. It learns safety not through words, but through your willingness to remain. We'll continue exploring this unfolding, how presence rewrites memory, and what it means to live from that deeper seeing. When you begin to live, presence turns into something more than attention. It becomes a form of love, because love, at its core, is uninterrupted awareness. To love yourself isn't to approve of every part of you. It's to stay present with every part, even the ones that make you flinch. You'll start to notice how quickly the mind wants to edit your experience. To say, this shouldn't be here. This means I'm failing. This feeling must go. But that inner commentary is just fear disguised as order. It wants to manage reality so you never have to meet what's raw. Yet each time you drop beneath the commentary and just feel, without interference, you reintroduce honesty into your life. That honesty is rare. We're taught to curate ourselves, to be consistent, composed, digestible. But the soul isn't tidy. It's contradictory, shifting, unpredictable. And the more you chase stability by control, the more alienated you feel from your own aliveness. What if stability didn't come from managing feelings, but from trusting that no feeling can destroy you? What if peace wasn't the absence of motion, but the ability to move through whatever arrives without losing your center? That's the second layer of this strategy. Learning not just to watch your experience, but to stay open to it. Because openness is what turns awareness into transformation. Watching can become a subtle defense, a way of staying safe by analyzing yourself from a distance. But when you let awareness sink from mind to body, you begin to feel what's been frozen, the trembling behind your calm, the grief under your busyness, the longing beneath your competence. This is where real change begins, not in insight, but in permission. You stop trying to edit your inner world and instead allow it to express what it's been holding. The tears that appear for no reason, the sudden tiredness after years of performance, the anger that finally stops being polite. These aren't regressions. They're releases. Your system is learning that it no longer has to pretend. You'll know this process is deepening when old reactions start to soften. The same situations that once pulled you into defensiveness now invite curiosity. Instead of, what's wrong with me? You start asking, what is this moment trying to show me? And that single shift from judgment to curiosity changes the chemistry of your entire emotional life. Curiosity is the gentlest form of courage. It doesn't demand that you fix anything. It simply asks that you turn toward what you've been avoiding. And in that turning, the pain that once felt unbearable begins to reveal its message. Anger shows you where you abandoned yourself. Sadness shows you what you valued. Anxiety shows you where your body still believes danger is near. Every feeling becomes guidance once you stop fearing it. But there's another layer here, one that often surprises people. When you begin to watch yourself this closely, you realize you've never actually met reality. You've only met your interpretation of it. Every argument, every heartbreak, every ambition is filtered through personal meaning. The moment you become aware of that filter, the world starts to feel new, Not because it changed, but because you did. Imagine someone criticizing you. Before, your body braced. You heard threat, shame, proof of unworthiness. Now, with awareness, you pause. You feel the sting, but you also feel the story rising. They don't respect me. You breathe. You recognize that sentence as protection, not truth. Suddenly, there's space, a breath between stimulus and self-definition. You might even hear the other person clearly for the first time. That's the quiet miracle of psychological awareness. It returns you to choice. You no longer live at the mercy of your conditioning. You start to respond to life, not reenact it. And the more you practice, the deeper it goes. Awareness begins noticing awareness itself. You see your thoughts come and go, your moods rise and fall, and something inside you remains untouched, the still witness behind the movement. You realize that who you are isn't the content of experience, but the consciousness experiencing it. This recognition doesn't make you detached, it makes you tender. Because when you know yourself as the space in which everything happens, compassion becomes natural. You stop dividing the world into villains and victims, right and wrong, deserving and undeserving. You start to see pain everywhere, in others, in yourself. And your first instinct becomes softness. That softness isn't weakness, it's intelligence. It understands that every behavior is a strategy for safety. Every judgment is a disguise for fear. Every outburst is a cry for connection. The more deeply you see this, the less you need to defend yourself. You don't take things as personally because you recognize that everyone is acting out their own unseen story. And yet, this level of awareness can feel lonely at first. You may start to sense the emotional choreography around you, how people hide, perform, compete, and it might make you ache. You'll crave realness, conversations that breathe, relationships that don't require masks. This is the price of awakening. You outgrow what once kept you comfortable. But even that longing is sacred. It's the soul's way of guiding you toward resonance. The more authentic you become with yourself, without your constant supervision, you start to see that everything you've been chasing, peace, confidence, love, isn't something you create by doing. It's what naturally arises when you stop resisting what is. The mind, for the first time, bows to the mystery of the heart. This surrender is not a single act. It's a rhythm. You'll catch yourself clinging to certainty, to image, to effort, and then you'll feel the soft pull to release again. Each letting go feels like a small death, but it's really a return. You're learning to trust that even when the story falls apart, the awareness holding it does not. You may notice moments where you forget everything, where awareness disappears, and you're back inside the storm of thought. That's not failure. That's the dance. The human experience was never meant to be constant stillness. It was meant to be remembered and forgotten again and again until even forgetting becomes sacred. At this point, your relationship with emotion shifts once more. Feelings no longer appear as obstacles to overcome or lessons to decode. They're just weather passing through open sky. You no longer ask, "Why am I feeling this?" You simply say, "Ah, this is what's here." The simplicity of that recognition ends lifetimes of inner war. You'll begin to sense something extraordinary, a kind of quiet joy that has nothing to do with circumstances. It isn't excitement. It isn't even happiness. It's more like ease, the natural ease of being what you already are. You realize that nothing outside you has ever been missing. You've just been overlooking it while searching for more. Even your pain starts to look different. You can sit with heartbreak and still feel wholeness beneath it. You can experience fear without losing your ground. You begin to see that emotions are waves, and you are the ocean. They rise, they fall, they vanish. But the water, you, remains. And as this recognition deepens, so does compassion. You start noticing that everyone around you is fighting invisible battles of perception. You see how the coworker who interrupts is really trying to be heard, how the friend who withdraws is protecting old tenderness, how even your own defensiveness is love trying to guard itself. You start to live from understanding instead of reaction. That's what makes this simple strategy so powerful. It doesn't just change your inner world, it alters the texture of your relationships, your presence, your energy. People feel safer around you, not because you say the right things, but because you no longer need to win, prove, or fix. You offer the rare gift of presence. Presence is contagious. It softens the nervous systems of those nearby. It reminds them of their own inner space. You start to see that healing isn't a personal achievement. It's an atmosphere you create by existing authentically. In quiet moments, when the day slows, you might feel something wordless, as if the universe itself is breathing through you. That's not imagination. That's what happens when the boundary between you and life begins to dissolve. The observer and the observed are made of the same awareness. The mind calls it merging, but the heart calls it homecoming. And yet, even here, something in you still whispers, "What now?" It's a beautiful question, because that curiosity means you're still alive to mystery. Even in stillness, the impulse to explore remains, not as striving, but as wonder. Awareness itself wants to know itself more deeply. You realize that living consciously isn't about detaching from the world. It's about participating more fully, but without illusion. You work, love, create, grieve, but you don't lose yourself in the storyline. You play, knowing it's a play. You feel deeply, knowing you are not only what you feel. You act, knowing there's no separate actor. From here, even the smallest experiences shimmer with significance. The way sunlight hits a wall, the sound of someone's laughter in the distance, the breath before you speak. Everything becomes intimate because nothing is being filtered anymore. Awareness touches life directly. And the irony of all of it, the profound, almost tender irony, is that the strategy that changes your life forever was never a strategy at all. It was the remembering of your natural state, the capacity to notice, to allow, to be. No one can give this to you, and no one can take it away. It was here before your first thought, and it will remain after your last. Every practice, every insight, every effort was only ever pointing you back to this, the simple awareness of being aware. Sometimes, in the stillness of a late night, when everything is quiet enough to hear your own presence, you'll feel the echo of your entire journey. The years of striving, the cycles of self-doubt, the breakthroughs, the heartbreaks, all of it collapsing into a single understanding. I was never separate from what I sought. And perhaps that's what change your life forever really means. Not to build a new one, but to finally inhabit the one you already have. So now, as the story quiets, there's no grand conclusion, no final destination, just this gentle invitation to keep noticing, to keep feeling, to keep surrendering to the ever-unfolding miracle of being here at all. Because awareness, this simple, eternal seeing, is not the end of the journey. It is the journey. And you, the one who watches, are both the traveler and the path itself.